The Mayor's Chaplain, Reverend Ian Baker, will now say the prayers.
Hello, everybody. Let's pray together as we stand. Father God, we thank you that you invite us to pray to you and that you love to hear and answer our prayers. We pray tonight for the world that we live in. Father, when we watch the news, we see war and conflict, people fighting enemies beyond their borders, and conflicts between governments and people. Father, we do pray tonight for peace and for justice. We pray for those working for peace to build good relationships, develop trust, and be wise to listen and hear both sides. Help them be wise as they broker peace. And we pray for those who oppress their people or who wage war against other peoples to be stopped in their tracks. Father God, we've seen on the news the horror of the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Father, we pray for the rescue workers who must be so tired after all these days. Please, Father, give them energy. We pray for those traumatized by their experiences, and we pray for those who are bereaved. Please help them all and give them peace and rest and provide for their needs. And please help the governments and aid agencies in the rescue, recovery, and the rebuilding of the communities. Father, we pray for our own country, for the people going through hard times here too, with the cost of food and fuel and inflation. Father, pray for those who find this time stressful, for those who have to choose between what they spend their money on, fuel or food. We pray for our country. We pray especially for the people who live in our towns, the towns that make up the borough of Newcastle-under-Lyme. Father, thank you for the charities that work to relieve suffering. Thank you for all who do, whether employed or volunteers in our towns. We pray you'd provide what they need, and may they find the people most in need and help them, we pray. And Father, we pray for the council meeting this evening. We pray for wisdom for all involved. We pray for the discussions and debates, especially around the budget. Father, help people be generous and kind to one another and good-natured, and help everyone serve people and serve the common good. We pray for strong debates and effective accountability to keep the council here working well for the people of Newcastle-under-Lyme. We pray our prayers in Jesus' name and join in the prayer he taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, members. Before we begin, I need to go over the usual housekeeping rules. There are no fire drills planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and assemble in Queen's Gardens at the front of the building. Please do not re-enter the building until you're advised to do so. and I would like to remind members of protocols around speaking during the meeting. No member should speak until invited to do so by myself. If you wish to speak, please could I ask that you raise your hand high until you have been acknowledged. And please would all members in the room use their microphones whenever they speak, as without them, anyone watching online will not be able to hear you. To use the microphones, please press the button front and centre on the microphone when invited to speak and wait a moment for the light on your microphone to come on. Please remember to turn off your microphone once you have finished. And please could I ask at the end of the meeting to make sure that you take all your belongings and waste with you. Thank you. So agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Councillor Simon Jones. Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. The next agenda item, members, item 6 on the agenda is the pay policy statement, which of course relates to officer pay. I would like to note a declaration of interest on behalf of all our officers present tonight, but would not expect them to leave the room at this item in case their advice is required. So are there any other declarations of interest from any members or officers in relation to any items of business contained within this agenda? No? Okay. Agenda item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Can the minutes please be agreed? Yeah? Okay. So agenda item 5, revenue and capital budgets and strategies 2023 to 2024. Members, we now turn to the next substantive item of business on this evening's agenda, which is the consideration of the proposed revenue and capital budget and strategies for 2023-2024 financial year. A copy of the report and associated papers can be found on pages 11 to 121 of your agenda. An amendment to the budget proposed by Councillor Dave Jones and seconded by Councillor Mike Stubbs can be found on pages 3 to 6 of your supplementary agenda. In a moment, I will ask Councillor Tagg to introduce and move the report and Councillor Sweeney to second it. After that, I will invite Councillor Jones to move the amendment and Councillor Stubbs to second it. We will then have a debate on the amendment. Councillor Tagg, will you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to move the budget recommendations in the report A to O as set out in Appendix A, which includes a low council tax rise of 1.99%. That's just 8p an extra a week for a vast majority of residents in the borough at a time when inflation is high and energy bills are rising sharply. This honours the pledge from the Conservative group made in last May's election to keep council tax rises below 2%. We've done this while presenting a budget that advances our ambitions set out in the council plan, which was agreed last September, and in a prudent and balanced way. This includes continual improvement of services to the public and beginning to deliver on that regeneration of our town centres with the help of the once in a generation multi-million-pound investment from the government via the Future High Streets Fund and the town deals. The council's budget, just like household budgets, has been hit by rising inflation. This has been softened over the last year because of the cost of living reserve, which we created last year in last year's budget. And also the government have acknowledged the pressure local government is under, and that is reflected in the settlement that we've received. Once again, as they did in the COVID pandemic, they have recognised the work local councils do for their communities and provided for that in the settlement. An efficiency board covering the budget areas under consideration tonight convened in late in the summer, involving cabinet members and service heads to secure the necessary savings this year, which are totalling £2.1 million. This is achieved without affecting frontline statutory services provided by this council. Street scene, parks maintenance are again protected as the council, as is the council's waste and recycling system. And we will continue to work to improve and roll out a neighbourhood approach to street scene, and also to increase our recycling rates. Protection for the planning service continues. It's well performing. We want that to continue, but also we want to move at pace on the formulation of our new borough local plan. Our One Council programme continues to pay dividends and is ensuring we have the right people in the right areas to help to deliver those quality services which we want to. Appendix 4 in the report outlines the detailed proposals which include the additional efficiencies, savings and good housekeeping measures. I would like to thank the officers of the council and the financial team, some here tonight, and cabinet members for their work on the savings plan outlined in the budget, and members of the FAPS committee who have scrutinised the savings and budget proposals now on 2 occasions. This year we've seen a series of amendments from the Labour group to put to scrutiny, and I'm pleased that the scrutiny committee were able to expose some of the muddled thinking and in some ways dangerous proposals that the Labour group are putting forward. The budget proposals before us this evening include a provision for another boost in council reserves to 4.83 million, further building a sound base on which our plans rest. This is necessary given the uncertainty around inflation and the effects on the local economy and, of course, national finances. It should be noted that when this administration took control in December 2017, the reserves we inherited from Labour were deemed to be too low, and that presented a real risk to the council. Conservatives, since we took over, have set up building up the council's reserves, and we've stood us in good stead, Madam Mayor, during the COVID pandemic, and also dealing with the issues and the legal action associated with Wallis Quarry. Again, this year, we have a budget and borrowing support fund to insulate us against those increased costs that will continue. Inflation seems to have peaked, but is still very high in relation to previous years. I note one of the Labour amendments is criticising the approach to reserves and says, as it says in the report before us tonight, any future action the council may take on Wallis Quarry will be subject to agreement of full council in relation to allotting of funds from the reserves to support any legal action we take. And that's how it should be. We should all stand together and make the decision as a one council if we do pursue any further action, if the odours were to flare up again. And we do that on behalf of our communities, as we did in 2022. Labour also claim that the council will be transferring funds from the Wallis Quarry Reserve to meet deficits within the MTFS. This is not the case. It's a shame, but not sadly surprising, that the Labour leadership's inflammatory words in their document that went to scrutiny, even using the word condemn, are raising unfounded fears and concerns about the council's use of reserves and I think and the action we've taken over Wallis Quarry. I'd be interested to hear from the Labour leadership later if this marks the end of the cross-party consensus on Wallis Quarry, or will they withdraw that amendment? Madam Mayor, the main thrust of this budget is to invest in our aspirations for our borough and its future. Over the next year, we'll be using the flexible capital receipts policy for another £250,000 investment into our key priorities. It's detailed under 2.26 of the report. And the Growth Fund, which is now in its 4th year, will continue to invest in the borough's future. This will allow us to focus on important things that matter to our communities and have been indicated in budget consultations year on year. People want us to protect frontline services such as street cleaning and parks maintenance, improve recycling and also regenerate our town centres. And we're using this year's fund to advance the council's sustainability goals as we map a route to net zero with tree planting and other environmental initiatives in our over 60 now green spaces that this administration has saved as carbon capture areas. We will continue to fund the One Council programme as we review its progress, improving services for residents and continuing to invest in developing the skills of our staff, and also listening to members on the feedback that the public give on how the One Council is going. We are committing funds to help promote our town centre and the historic market as we celebrate 150 years of our borough since it received its first charter from Henry II. Finally, Madam Mayor, the budget proposes a 3-year capital programme that invests a total of £48 million. 22.5 million of that is from external funding coming into the council from the government through Future High Streets Fund and from town deals. This is the most important capital programme in the 20 years I've been on the council. Last year saw us deliver Kids Grow Sports Centre. Now we move towards delivering on the regeneration of the Rycroft, starting with the replacement car park on the replacement for the Midway car park, which will be the cornerstone and facilitating the rest of the long-awaited development of the Rycroft as a whole. The car park has a business case. It's been signed off by the government. and it will be internally financed by the council and will show a surplus on income within 5 years. I note the Labour amendment focuses on capital monies allocated to the regeneration of the town centre, and if they were to pass, I believe they would strangle the once-in-a-generation opportunity that has been led to the Future High Streets Fund and Town Deal money being returned to the government unspent, which would be an absolute disaster for this council. That is why I said the Labour amendments are dangerous and it must not be allowed to happen. Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to recommend the budget, both revenue and capital, to take this council and borough forward and honour our commitments to lower council tax and to deliver for the borough's generation. And I ask all members to support it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Just within your 5 minutes. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to second the motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, this meeting is a combination of the budget process, which started before the 22-23 budget was set. A lot of things I was going to say that the leader has already said. One thing the other thing he's mentioned is we established a cost of living reserve of £400,000. Now, we did this last year, because I think it's fair to say we could see what was coming down the track, and we've carried that reserve again this year because we don't really know what the future is going to bring us. He also mentions, the leader does, that the reserves that we've actually got have gone up by £500,000. What I would like to talk to briefly, though, is I can about this motion. I know it's not the motion time, but I was at scrutiny when it was discussed, so I think it's fair to mention it now. If the council approved the suggestion of a 3 times multiplier on capital receipts, this is item number 1. This would put the delivery of the Future High Street Fund and Town Deal funds projects at risk of completion and potentially result in the council having to repay the grant funding to central government. The capital programme would need to be revised and expenditures such as the fleet replacement programme pushed back, which could result in an impact on service delivery. The suggestion put forward is a short-term view, which goes against all the guidance the council receives from organisations such as SITFA in respect of providing a 10-year capital strategy. The council's capital strategy is currently used as a good example in the SITFA capital strategy guidance report. It's all over that, how well we run it. Volatile. Number 2 is volatility in UK financial markets. Well, obviously, it's assessed all the time by our finance team. Value of assets proposed for disposal. I believe you've got a printout on your desk of telling you that is. It's all on the website. It's not a secret. We're not a secret council. We don't hide things. It's on the website if you care to look for it. 4th, costs associated with proposed new multi-storey car park in Newcastle town centre. Professional opinion of the facilities management team is that the existing Midway car park will require a considerable amount to be spent on repairs. And I challenge anybody to drive around the Midway car park and not think, this isn't going to last too long. It's really not a very good place to go. It's also not a place you want to park. I never park in there. We've had Cabinet received a number of reports relating to the Newcastle car park. Now, the Newcastle car park is just part of the whole vision for that part of Newcastle. It's the first part of it. York Place is another part of it. The Spire building coming in is another part of it. It's all a jigsaw that goes together. So I think any attack on the new car park, I think, is foolish. But the one that really triggered me is the one about the Wallace Quarry Reserve. And this bizarre item that the Labour Party put in somehow, that we're taking money out of reserves to back up to make our balance, our budget balance. I mean, I'm sure it's just a mistake, but it's absolute nonsense, utter and complete nonsense. It's not being used. The money is there. It might not be called the Wallace Quarry Reserve anymore. It might be called something else, but it's still there. We're not using it to balance the budget. We never were going, and we never will do. It's just absolute nonsense. This sort of thing that irritates me really, when people who make mistakes, should we say, on that basis. I think this budget is a sound budget. I think it's an excellent budget, but I would say that, wouldn't I? I think the budget helps to make our area a better place for our residents, which is why we all came into politics in the first place. Certainly, where I did. You know, I always say that Clayton is a jewel of Newcastle's crown. I'll stand and say that all day long. I believe it's a robust, affordable and balanced budget for 22-23, as you were, even 23-24. And I'm happy and indeed honoured to support it. Thank you.
Sweeney. We now move to the amendment. Councillor Jones, would you like to move the amendment?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I start, I'd just like to thank the officers for all the time they spent on preparing the budget and also for the time that they've spent with us as opposition members in preparation of these amendments, amendments that they had no concern about. I'd also like to thank Councillor Holland as chair of the relevant scrutiny committee for giving us the opportunity to table these budget amendments to financial scrutiny and to hear from the councillors at scrutiny. And there was quite a robust challenge of our amendments. I'd agree with that. Certainly it's centred on a singular challenge about the multiplier. There was no suggestions or amendments to that, but there was certainly some vocal concern that's been raised again tonight. But we'll go through that and we'll see how things go during the debate. We as the opposition have tabled these amendments tonight because we have some very significant concerns over the recklessness the administration has put forward with the capital strategy that forms up part or the capital element of the budget. And we intend to focus predominantly on those. The highlighted main reason of this is that this is an authority that can pride itself in not needing to borrow. It's an authority that for over a decade has not had to borrow substantive money in order to undertake projects. Now, in the past, that was probably because that once in a lifetime investment that came into the council was coming in quite regularly in the form of the central government settlement deal. Instead, these days, we have to go cap in hand for a once in a lifetime investment, which I think is quite an embarrassment to us and to our residents. But we note that this capital budget comes with a commitment of £15 million of initial borrowing, followed up by a further £15 million to take a total of £30 million over the lifetime of the capital strategy. We're concerned about the lack of transparency over capital assets for disposal. We came into the meeting today to find this document with a list of sites. This could have been provided. Certainly, it's not on the website that we could find. We have concerns over the spiralling costs of capital projects, notably the spiralling costs of the capital project associated with the new multi-storey car park. As a responsible opposition, we've tabled a set of measures we feel would make the capital budget more palatable. These are summarised at the end of the document. The limit on annual borrowing based on realisation of capital receipts, we suggested a 3 times multiplier. I even said at scrutiny we'd be open to moving that number if there was recommendations of a number that would be reasonable. It's the principle that as an authority, like we do with household budgets, if you have things to sell to raise the money, that should be tied to how much is borrowed. And we do have concerns about the value of the sites, which is why we wanted a full list of those assets, so we could gauge whether these sites are likely to be sold and the value of these sites, whether this capital asset element of the budget is actually going to be realised. On the multi-storey car park, and there is a lot of nonsense going on about this, we at no point proposed handing the money back to central government. And in fact, if you read the proposals properly, we recommend that the project is value engineered to the original costs when the money was awarded 12 months ago. Because under the original costs, this authority was going to borrow 3.5 million to fund a car park. Now it's borrowing 7.9. I might be incorrect on that number, but the costs have absolutely spiraled. And as a consequence, we believe that value engineering strategy would be a better use of that. I'm afraid I don't buy into the argument that the business case for this and the viability needs and viability are there because it's been signed off by a government that we can't even trust to oversee PPE, resulting in the scandalous waste of public money. We asked for evidence of parking need. Do we need that multi-storey car park? Even if the midway is demolished, is there a parking need for that? These numbers haven't been provided. And then finally on Wally's Quarry, I think it's quite cynical. I'll state categorically, this isn't an end to cross-party working. We are quite happy to work cross-party on Wally's Quarry. And we worked cross-party to agree that ring-fenced 1 million. Now, we know that the abatement notice is in its infancy. And we also know from experience that if there are problems, should odours increase, should the operator pursue legal avenues against enforcement of the abatement notice, that we are going to have to look at costs again. Now, all I've heard is that that money's there. It's just in reserves. It's somewhere in a pot of money, which to me, I cannot fathom why ring fencing that is a problem. If there is that money somewhere sat within reserves, what is the issue with ring fencing that? Because it's quite important to our residents that they know that the minute anything could happen, that money's already there, that they don't have to wait for a council meeting to agree that money. Of course, we would agree to allocate money from reserves into there. But why delay? Why bring that in there? What is the purpose? The only purpose to put that money into reserves is that it can be used for a different purpose. That is the only reason. So if you have full intention of ring fencing that money and saying that money is available if needed, then why can it not sit within its original budget line? I also note that the administration also hasn't pointed out.
Councillor Jones, can you wrap it up, please?
Yeah, I'll leave elements of that for the debate, I think. So in just wrapping up, what we've done is taken the capital aspects of this budget, made it what we feel is more palatable in the best interests of our residents, and a budget that we feel is a more secure capital budget going forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Stubbs, would you like to second the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second the amendment. And can I also reserve the right to speak at the end
Until
of the...
later.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Amendment, which has now been moved and seconded, and then I'm going to assume that Councillor Tagg and Sweeney do not consent to the amendment. No. In which case, we will now debate the amendment. To be clear, members, we are debating whether or not the proposed amendment should be accepted. Can I ask that you indicate by raising your hand if you wish to speak? Councillor Brockie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The intended level of borrowing in a hostile borrowing climate, a time of acknowledged great uncertainty, because throughout the document, which is the medium-term financial strategy, particularly section 214, the fact that we are borrowing this amount of money over a substantial amount of time appears to be flying in the face of the prudence and responsibility which is rightly expected of our council. Will the residents of Newcastle have it made clear to them in plain language how much interest will be payable over the whole term of the loans?
Thank you, Councillor Brockie. Councillor Joan Wielden.
One day. I'd like to thank the Leader of the Council for a very fulsome report. I welcome the Council's continued focus on Wally's Quarry. It's a part of the borough that affects Thistlebury, which is my ward, and it's still of concern to residents in all those areas, especially in Pool Fields. I also welcome the operator's proactive stance in addressing the increased odours. and making a statement and actually starting to be more open with the community. So it's good to see that the company's in regular dialogue with a number of council officers. For Councillor Tagg, I'd like to ask, does he agree with me that this new approach and also the sources of information about Wallace Quarry that are now available from the council and also the operator as part of the legal agreements are important issues to reassure people in those affected areas that everything is being done to solve the problem?
And Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, basically, it's just looking at, as obviously went to the Finance Committee last time, basically, it was just a lot of things about the public consultation that's taking part in regards to the administration proposed to the Castle car park. And just wondering how the plans for the redevelopment zone, including the car park and the hotel, actually reflect the concerns of the residents on the borough. People in my ward certainly have real concerns, and it's something you need to go forward and have a look into. And so something I'd like to just see what the actual reply is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grocott. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things that leapt out when Councillor Jones was talking. Reckless. We're a reckless council. I think I said it at the FAPS meeting. I mean, Gedling Borough Council, the authority, I think, near to a few people's hearts in this particular administration, plan to borrow circa £11 million over their 5-year capital programme. East Staffs plan to borrow £9.9 million to support high street projects. Stafford Borough Council plan to borrow £1.4 million. All councils borrow. I sat at the Police, Crime and Fire panel yesterday. It was their budget setting meeting, and they've got their £20 million in debt. The fire services. I mean, everybody does it. It's just not reckless. It's just the way councils work. I think Councillor Holland has quoted vacillation amongst the Labour Party is a good word. In 2006, we had I got elected in 2006. You might not believe I'm that old, but I am. And on the Labour leaflets afterwards, we used to hear these sums of money that the Borough Council had frittered away on vanity projects like Jubilee 2 swimming pool, like a new cemetery, like repairing the Guildhall and making it fit for purpose again. I mean, a vanity project to me is a statue of Councillor Tagg in the middle of the sunken roundabout, golden statue looking winsome away. That's a vanity project. I don't think a new cemetery is a vanity project. Now, we also used to hear figures about the amount of money that the Conservative administration inherited in 2006, and whichever Labour member wrote the leaflet, the amount varied. I think it went sort of £20 million to £80 million, and the spin is that there's wonderful sort of Labour, husbandry of the money. They were really, really clever, good with money. They got all this money. No, they haven't. They sold Aspire Housing. They sold the housing to Aspire, and they banked the money, and they did nothing with it. We had a car park that's falling down. We had a swimming pool that's ready shut, but they sat with the money in a bank doing nothing because they can't make their minds up and they can't do anything. Whereas this council now actually does things that have ambitions to make Newcastle a better place. We know Newcastle's a great place and we want to make it better. And that's what this council does. And it actually does things. It doesn't just talk about it and go, oh, we can't make a decision. Oh, no, we can't do that. We do. We make decisions and we do what things that we think are best for the borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've been informed on a number of occasions at Council and in scrutiny that there's interest from a mid-range hotel on the Rycroft and that the car park is fundamental to attracting the hotel, which itself is part of the redeployment strategy. It appears that there's a consultancy is being hired to realise the project. How advanced are these plans? And can the council and the public be given a properly researched timeframe for this plan? And can we have some clarification of the cost to the borough of hiring this consultancy, along with confirmation that there is firm interest from hoteliers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rees. Councillor Mark Holland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I solemnly swear I will not move the closure motion, although I'd probably be very tempted to do that once again. Grateful thanks to Councillor Jones for his opening words. The amendment that's in front of us points out that these Labour amendments have been through scrutiny at the committee that I chair. I have to say they've been through scrutiny in the same way that sweet corn passes through my digestive system. They are indigestible amendments. They are not amendments which commanded the confidence of the committee. And indeed, when I invited them to put it to a vote, they preferred that the paper was noted rather than asking members to express in a democratic way their support or opposition to what was put forward. I thank them for putting forward the paper because that is good process, that is good scrutiny. But I'm disappointed that we're looking at it again in a more politically charged environment this evening. Councillor Sweeney said that I have in the past criticised the Labour Party for vacillating, and I might have done that when they were administration in this council, but vacillation implies movement, Madam Mayor, and I'm not sure that the Labour Party is moving very far or very fast in any particular direction, let alone vacillating at a high frequency. What I think the amendments in front of us betray is a total lack of vision, and from what we heard at the finance scrutiny meeting, perhaps some basic misunderstandings about how the budget works, about how reserves, financial reserves are managed, and about how we have structures in place that determine whether or not in the long term, in the medium to long term, our capital strategy is a good one. Now, we've heard tonight that actually it's considered very good. The way in which we handle ourselves, the way in which we plan for the future is very good. And the amendment in front of us would seek to drive a horse and cart through that, if indeed we could procure a horse and cart under the very fine strictures that the Labour Party would like to place on our ability to budget in the future. So I will be voting against the amendment. I'd very much like for us to spend a bit more time on discussing the wonderful elements of the budget that I will be voting to pass later on. But in conclusion, I'd like to say thanks, but no thanks. I did not come into public life to manage decline, as the Labour Party would like to seem to want us to do. I didn't come into public life to raise taxes or to take actions that in the long run will result in a higher tax burden on the people of the borough. And I certainly wasn't elected into office to vote with the Labour Party. So I encourage everyone tonight not to, and I'll be voting against the motion, against the amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Tagg said that scrutiny had exposed Labour amendments. I note that Councillor Tagg wasn't at the scrutiny meeting, where the administration had no answers to the plethora of questions put forward by members. Had he been present, he would have seen that his group, and in particular his deputy leader, praised the excellent scrutiny and points made by the Labour group, something that was also echoed by officers. I think what it has exposed is ego over good governance. But Councillor Sweeney then goes on to state that police and fire are in debt. I would remind him that it's a Conservative Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner in charge of Staffordshire Police and Fire, who consequently has both taken them into special measures in the last 12 months. So our concern with this budget and the reality of the situation that we're in is that almost 3/4 of the capital strategy is predicated on the sale of Keele Golf Course. We know that after forcing the disclosure, finally, of sites on the documents that's been put forward tonight, on the night of the budget itself. So it's not a diverse range of assets. It's not a portfolio of assets. It's all our eggs in one basket. That basket has already proved incredibly contentious. We know that there's no public support to sell that site, and it is in Greenbelt land. And what's more, the Conservatives stood for election in May promising to protect green spaces. But you're not being honest with residents, you're not being honest with council, you're not being honest with yourselves. And I think I can speak on behalf of our group when I say that this Labour group will not support the sale of Keele Golf Course site, and it therefore cannot support an incredibly reckless budget that depends solely on selling that site for the success of the plan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Councillor Richards.
There appears to be a consensus that Midway Car Park needs to be demolished, and it is hoped that this is undertaken as quickly as possible. Many councils are getting rid of these structures in favour of lower level provision. Do we have any estimates for the demolition, detailing the impact on drainage, adjoining buildings, surrounding infrastructure, be fully factored into the costings? Has any funding been secured, and if so, how much? Thank you.
Councillor Richards. Councillor Andy Fear.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. In recent years, this evening has usually been quite a nice one in some ways. Tonight, this amendment takes us back to the bad old days, doesn't it, of the Labour administrations of the past. And what we see here is a curiosity, actually. We see these amendments, and yet they're all about questions. There's nothing much positive there. It's as if the Labour group has no confidence in its own grounds. It doesn't want to assert anything at all, seemingly. We've been told there are secret documents, which are, if you go on the website, are not secret documents, which is also somewhat curious. But of course, all of this really is understandably oppositions. Of course, politics of opposition is very often the politics of irresponsibility. And here we are simply scoring a few political points. Indeed, the second one of these amendments makes that absolutely clear by not talking about us, but using the budget process here to have a crack at the national government. So a little bit of campaigning for the next general election. Well, fair enough, but it's not what we're here for. There is no confidence in this, is there? My understanding, and I'm sure our officers, who again I would like to thank for their hard work they've put into this process, will correct me if I'm wrong, that the notion of a 3 times multiplier is not something which is common in the local government. And we ought to be awfully careful, because if this does prejudice the very substantial money that we've had, we could be the laughing stock of the country, handing back money that has been given to us. I mean, what on earth would our residents think were that to happen? That would be absolutely bonkers. There's no confidence here in Newcastle. What we have is the good old Labour formula of dithering, which will lead to decline and decay, where we've been before. The car park. We need a new car park. If we don't have an attractive car park, people will not come to our borough. And the Midway is past its sell-by date. If we stick with the Midway, not only do we have an unattractive asset, we will throw good money after bad. We'll be stuck. What we have here with our budget is a vision for the future. And it's a shame, isn't it, that the Labour Party has changed so much in some ways. A long, long time ago, when I came onto the council, I remember the Labour administration pushing through the Castle Walks development. And I remember the leader of the Liberal group at that time umming and ahhing and making reasons why that project should not go ahead. And the deputy leader of the day, Councillor Harry Matthews, I believe, as I recall, turned round and he said, we've got to get on with this. We need to go forwards. We can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. In other words, we're going to take a justifiable risk for the good of our borough. And that is what seemingly now the Labour Party has no confidence in doing. Far be it from me to say that old Labour was wonderful, but by gum, it seems to be a lot better than new Labour now. We need to vote down these pessimistic political amendments and press forward with the development of our town.
Councillor John Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I noticed the last speakers, they talk in the past, where I've been quoting a leaflet 18 years ago. It was printed 18 years ago. How sad can you get? The Labour amendment seeks to curtail the Conservative reckless budget that will put this council in debt for in years to come. Maybe that's their dastardly plan to leave the next administration millions of pounds in debt. The ratepayers living in the borough will pick up the interest payments on the loan and then paying off the loan. Who else will pay it off? Either a lot of services which have already been cut in the last 12 years of austerity, or an increase in the council tax. I do understand the need for a new car park to facilitate the occupancy of proposed development of the Sainsbury's site. We're not to borrow millions to pay for it. I believe that the Staffordshire County Council own half of the site. What part do they play in this development? Will they run the car park? It hasn't been explained properly. We want answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Paul Waring.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following the recent scrutiny meeting where we argued conclusively, in my opinion, that many of these amendments were unworkable, in particular, the proposed 3 times multiplier is preposterous. If you'd run it by any accountant who had experience in construction, they would have explained how the disruption to any projects would cost the council a fortune in penalties, increased costs and claims for breach of contract. Whilst we have a reasonable degree of control over project expenditure, capital receipts are very unpredictable and would cause huge disruption to the timing of all the projects stopping and starting. Councillor Jones has said that we propose no amendment to this 3 times multiplier, but this cannot be amended because it's got no logical foundation. It's therefore impossible for me to support these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waring. That's all the speakers I've got listed on this. Councillor Stubbs, do you now wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I begin, can I also thank the staff for the work that they've put into this wider budget document. As a former local government finance officer myself, I'm acutely aware of not just the work done by the finance team, but the required input from everybody across the authority as a whole. For the last few years, members both within the Cabinet and the wider administration have carped from the ivory tower with regard to engagement from the Labour group when it comes to the revenue and capital budget and financial strategies. Though often from a place of ignorance themselves, it is a fair challenge and one that the Labour group has this year risen to, having done this through a high-level engagement in the scrutiny process and the detailed amendment laid before you this evening. Council, tonight we lay down 5 scrutinised amendments reviewed not only by councillors but also by the head of service. Amendments that don't look to increase budgeted spend beyond our means, but amendments that seek greater transparency, mitigate clear and present financial risks and protect the council with regard to the continuing dispute at Wally's Quarry. Taking each in turn, the level of borrowing requested of full council tonight is eye-watering in the extreme. And given that the financial failure of local authorities such as Thurrock and Nottinghamshire County Council, this administration seems to have glibly forgotten the accounting concept of prudence. The calming suggestion of a multiplier would still allow prudential borrowing, which is specifically required for several of our capital projects, but would also stop the council from overreaching and putting its financial integrity at risk by placing an onus on the authority to sweat its capital receipts fully before lightly borrowing from other authorities. Just because something hasn't been done before doesn't make it impossible. There are plenty of examples of new and innovative approaches that have been successful even when they were initially met with skepticism. We live in a world that is constantly changing, and it is important for us to be adaptable and open to new ideas. If we always stick to what we know, we risk falling behind and missing out on golden opportunities. Returning to the accounting concept, it is not, again, prudent that we as a council require the administration, It is not again prudent that we as a council don't require the administration to report any identified risks, the mitigating strategies, and any contingencies within the medium-term financial strategy. Increased fuel costs, increased energy costs, this year's badly managed staff pay awards, the increase and therefore unbudgeted borrowing costs are all examples of the volatility in the UK, and I'm sure there are several more that members from across the chamber could allude to if asked. Despite requests both formally and informally, up to and including budget scrutiny, we have still not been furnished with a comprehensive list of capital assets containing the financial valuations of these assets. The failure to include these in the asset management strategy is at best regretful, but at worst disingenuous, as it does not allow the members a full and clear basis of just what assets the administration is willing to auction off to the highest bidder. Does the administration really expect every elected member to support a budget containing 15 million of short-term borrowing based on an income of 10 million secured from what sale of assets? I would caution members to not be so submissive and ensure that as soon as can be arranged that the appendix is added to the asset management strategy or circulated to members under Section 1 of the Public Bodies Act 1960. With regard to our very own Field of Dreams, also known as the future Castle Car Park complex, the build it and they will come philosophy will only end in disaster, as the nearby Conservative administration in Stoke can aptly show. At its initial costing, the council was looking to invest 3.5 million in this structure. Yet, in the space of several months, this figure has now doubled to 7.1 million. Surely this is an apt moment to take a firmer grip on this particular project and a value engineering exercise to be undertaken to lessen the direct impact on the public purse. Mentions have been made previously as to a possible hotel, but would that require the space? Does the building of Aspire's new headquarters need the car parking spaces? This council is a white elephant, especially at the cost of tens of millions to the borough's taxpayers. Finally, Madam Mayor, given we know that Wally's Quarry are likely to take years to pay back the costs awarded to the authority, isn't it foolhardy to slash the £400,000 out of the legal fund simply to prop up the rest of the budget? Given the lack of guarantees in place, and quite frankly, the lack of trust all members have in the operator, surely we must protect the budget on behalf of the residents of the borough. And I would urge members to think about the public that have been exposed for years on the site and ensure that the money is readily available should the worst happen again. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Thank you, members. We'll now vote on whether or not to accept the amendment that has been proposed. The law requires a named vote on budget matters, so I shall now hand over to the
Point of order,
Monitoring
Madam Mayor. I think we need to do the summing up of Councillor Jones and then myself, I think. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Councillor Jones as mover of the amendment to sum up. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just going to sum up just a few comments that were made, correct some inaccuracies and answer some of the points that have come up. Councillor Brockie mentioned borrowing. The interest rate, my understanding, is 7%, but more critically, this authority will be servicing that debt to the tune of £500,000 next year, rising to 2 million. So that's £2 million that this authority is going to have to find within the budgets to service the debt. Councillor Grocott made a very good point about public consultation. We've heard all this talk from members around on the administration. We need this car park. We need this car park. If we build this car park, suddenly the town centre will become a much better place. Where is the evidence for that? We haven't seen any evidence whatsoever that building this car park is actually going to generate that. Councillor Sweeney mentioned Gedling Council. I think you got your numbers wrong. It's £8 million of borrowing, not 11, but nevertheless, 11 million pales in insignificance against 30 million. And in fact, if you look at the detail behind that, Gedling are borrowing 11 million to buy land. They're actually borrowing 11 million to buy assets, including land that they intend to use as additional green space for the benefits of their borough. So rather than flogging off the green space, they're going to actually buy additional green space and protect it for residents. Councillor Holland mentioned some stuff about whether a vote or not. I was quite happy for it to be noted. Would have been happy for it to go to the vote. It would have been voted for in favour by all of the Labour members and against by all of the Conservative members. So quite frankly, it doesn't matter whether it had a vote or not. I'm glad he came in to local government not to raise taxes, because his administration has overseen a 14.72% increase in council tax in the last 6 years versus the Labour administration that raised council tax by 4.72 over that same period of time. Perhaps the red tie over there is quite adequate there, Mark. Councillor Fox-Hewitt raised about Keele Golf Course, and if anything, tonight has really risen in our residents' mind that the future borrowing and the building of a car park, all of the planned capital works within the town centres are based on selling a significant lump of land out of the green belt on the fringe of the western villages, as we call them. So this authority plans to sell greenbelt land in order to build things within the town centre. And if anything, tonight has exposed that entirely. Councillor Fear mentioned politics of opposition. The way things are going, you should get used to that. And he also mentioned this continued falsehood about having to hand the money back. We're not saying you'd hand the money back. You value engineer the project to meet the financial envelope. It's what organisations do when they don't have access to the public credit card, as we know has been abused recently. Councillor Waring raised actually a really good point, and I agree with him entirely. Probably the most sensible point of the night from the administration. There is fluidity in capital receipts. And that's what we're saying. And that's why we wanted this list of assets. We do not know that you're going to get the value you intend to get. Now we know it's based on one capital asset, which incidentally, in the budget is looking to raise 14 million. Wasn't that long ago, members of the group across were trying to hawk it around for 90 something million. But quite frankly, we do not believe that you are going to be able to raise that 20.9 million of asset sales. We just do not believe you. And if you are unwilling to value engineer projects, all that means is that that will end up as additional borrowing that this authority will have to go through. So 15 million next year, rising to 30 million over the life of the capital strategy. Where else will it go? How much higher will that borrowing go? And of course, we're concerned because one day we aspire to be the administration, and we'd prefer it if we didn't inherit a significant amount of debt, that all that debt has generated is some hope that a car park will regenerate the town centre without any evidence, any numbers, anything to substantiate that, whilst flogging off the green space that we have within the borough. It's reckless, and I'm afraid that's why we have felt the need to bring this amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Tagg for the final right to reply.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Yeah, I've been making some notes as we've gone through, so I'll try and address some of the points. And also, I think first of all, I'll start with this recklessness comment. I mean, you know, national politics has been brought into this tonight by the Labour group, and I will just remind them that they were the one that left the note in 2010 saying there's no money left, we spent it all. There you go. And then they've made. Can we just have some? I didn't interrupt them in their introduction. Particularly the deputy leader of the Labour group should show more respect for this council, for you as mayor and for members. He doesn't. You should show respect. Madam Mayor, would you call order? Okay. So we've heard this thing about this, you know, we've had loads of once in a lifetime investments in this council. I've been on for 20 years and haven't seen any of it, but I think they're referring back to 1998 when Aspire Housing took the stock on and put in that capital receipt, which Councillor Sweeney has talked about. Labour were trying to dine out on that. But ever since they've done that, the Labour Party have just been criticising Aspire ever since. It was the worst decision they ever made, isn't it? We saw it at the last meeting we had of this council, where they were putting a motion in criticising Aspire. And yet that's where that money came from the sale of the house stock. The other thing is this 30 million is a 10-year capital programme. When we talk about the other councils, we're referring to what they've got on their budget for this year or their 5-year MTFS. What we are being told here is it's over 10 years. So it's not that massive amount of money in a year or 2 years or even a 3-year. It's over a 10-year period. And I must say, this claim that they cannot find this asset management strategy, that is deceitful to the people listening this and to the guy in the press there. It is available online, always has been since the 19th of September 2018, and went through cabinet, went through scrutiny. We had a call-in on it as well, and we won the call-in, by the way, on the issue of Keele Golf Course. So that is absolutely bogus when they say we are not showing information. It is all there, and as has been put on the desk tonight to remember for the Labour members, but the Conservative group members knew it was already online, and those members that were around at the time were involved in the scrutiny about it and also the council meetings. So I don't see any argument that we are holding information back. The issue to do with the multiplier, I think Councillor Fear did handle that quite well, but I think Councillor Stubbs he's saying, oh, because it hasn't been seen before, it's the latest thing. I wonder if he's got it from the Cooperative Councillors Association, which is I think he's one of the leading lights in that. We, of course, when we came in here, we stopped wasting £1,500 of taxpayers' money on being a member of the Cooperative Council Association, which seems to be little more than a growing ground for future Labour MPs. So what I think about this amendment is that we can't support it. We said right at the beginning we can't support it. And I think it's an issue which divides us in this chamber, and we'll see it in the vote. I think the issue of Wally's Quarry, I think what Joan Wielden said about the work that's been going on and the improvement that we've seen is key. But of course, we don't rest on that, and we're always looking to ensure that this doesn't flare up again. And I go back to what I say is that there will be a legal process that we have to follow if we take the abatement notice process. And at the right time, this council will allot those funds, and we'll do it together, and we'll all stand up and do it at a special council meeting like we did in 2022, so that we can all show that we are standing with our residents. I think that's the right way to go. Councillor Fox-Hewitt saying that I didn't attend the FAP scrutiny meeting. Well, because of the way we run the council and the way we moved it forward, we now live webcast meetings, and you can watch them whenever you like, and I watched that in detail, and that's where I got the obviously the information that I received that was been backed up by Councillor Holland, who was chair of the committee. So we have moved on. We provide TV now, which is good. I think it was Councillor Rees come forward wanted breakdowns of the business case for the future plans for the hotel, if that was to come to fruition. I think what he needs to look at is these webcast recordings of the Economic Development Scrutiny Committee, because our officer, don't call him Councillor McKenny then, Simon McKenny, it reports to every meeting of that committee. I'm sure the chair would vouch for that, and updates on this future high street funds and also the town deal to show that this has been gone through properly, and anybody can ask any questions and request any information and they will receive it. That is open to all members of this council. And also remember that on an every leader statement like there is today, there is a statement about the future high streets fund and usually the town deals, but not this time, but the next time there will be. So this sort of thing that there's no scrutiny is just bogus. Lastly, Madam Mayor, the leader of the Labour group, I thought about, he's done it tonight. I thought about it when I was watching the FAPS meeting, the recording. He's going to come out against this car park, isn't he? Because he's been looking at the online hoo-ha over Stokes car park and thought here's an opportunity to try and dig at the Tories here. But he also said, and he said that he would like, why aren't we looking at retail units on the Rycroft? And I'm thinking, son of HDD. Anybody that wasn't here in 2017, we inherited from Labour a failed scheme for retail development on that site. And that was because the market couldn't deliver those and said it wasn't viable and it collapsed. And Labour want to take us back to that, son of HDD, and a site which is derelict forever, and we're not going to allow that. And I think it's relevant that we move this forward now, and that we do this. I've got ambition. but also it is prudent. And again, the last thing I will say is, Councillor Stood praised our finance officers and then attacked them by saying that this wasn't a budget that would stand up. And our finance officer, S151 officer, which Councillor Stubbs will know all about, has signed off this budget. She has given me great concern about your proposals, and particularly the multiplier that would lead to us having to give back our town deal money to the government, and doing like they did in Stoke when it was under Labour control during the 2000s, when they gave back millions upon millions of pounds because they couldn't do anything because they were in diver and drift, just as Councillor Fear and Councillor Sweeney said Labour were here before 2017. So we will be voting against this amendment now. Madam Mayor, I say move to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Right, thank you, members. We'll now move to the vote on whether or not to accept the amendment that has been proposed. The law requires a named vote on budget matters, so I shall now hand over to the monitoring officer to take and record the vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, I shall read out each of your names in turn. When I do, please indicate clearly whether you are for the amendment, against the amendment, or not voting. Councillor Adcock.
Against.
Councillor Allport.
For.
Councillor Barker.
Against.
Councillor Betley Smith.
Against.
Councillor Brocky. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bryan.
Against.
Councillor Burnett.
Against.
Councillor Crisp.
Against.
Councillor Diamond.
For.
Councillor Edgington Plunkett.
For.
Councillor Fear.
Against.
Councillor Fox Hewitt.
For.
Councillor Gorton.
For.
Councillor Grocott.
For.
Councillor Heeson. Councillor Holland.
Against.
Councillor Hutchison.
Against.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Dave Jones. Councillor Lawley.
For.
Councillor Moffat. Councillor Northcott. Councillor Panther.
Against.
Councillor Parker.
Against.
Councillor Rees.
For.
Councillor Richards.
For.
Councillor Skelding.
Against.
Councillor Stubbs.
For.
Councillor Sweeney.
Against.
Councillor John Tagg. Councillor Simon Tagg. Councillor Talbot. Councillor Jill Waring. Councillor Paul Waring.
Against.
Councillor Wilden. Councillor Gary White.
Against.
Councillor Simon White. Councillor Wilkes.
Against.
Councillor Jill Williams. Councillor John Williams. Councillor Ruth Wright. Thank you.
Proposal to amend the motion falls 24 to 18, and we now return to debate the original motion, which has already been moved and seconded. Do any members wish to speak on the original motion and have anything different to say on the original motion than they've already said? Four people wishing to speak. So Councillor Jones, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it goes without saying that I won't be supporting the administration's budget tonight. Outside of the amendment which failed just now, I have real concerns. We are facing quite unprecedented times financially. We've gone through one of the worst cost of living crises we've seen in a generation. We've seen household bills go up. We've seen families struggle. It feels that no part of our economy is going to escape the ongoing rise in costs. I would like to hope that that will stabilize at some point, but as we know with these things, they don't stabilize overnight. This budget, once again, presents a rise in council tax, which has been raised previously in the earlier debate as being, fantastically low at 1.99%. And I do agree that the authority could have set a higher level of council tax following the Treasury's announcement of a raising of the referendum threshold, and that the authority chose not to. I do also acknowledge that the authority was quite clear during the electoral period that it would raise council tax by 1.99%. And I did a little bit of digging around, having a look through previous budgets to see what the history of council tax rises have been. And if we compare, it's quite a momentous year this year, not because it's the pre-850th year of celebration, but also because it marks 6 years of Conservative administration, which is equal to the 6 years we had previous of a Labour-led administration. And I looked at how council tax rose. In 2012, it rose by, under the Labour administration, by 0%. In 2013, by 0%. In 2015, by 0%. In 2016, by 1.5%. 2017, by 2.77%, compounded to 4.27% over the lifetime of that administration. And then we look at the Conservative years, 2018, 2.7, 2019, 2.99, 2020, 2.55, 2021, 2.5, 2022, 1.99, and then 1.99 proposed, to a compounded 14.72% rise. Our residents are struggling, yet we are lumping them with higher amount of council tax. I remember a debate we had on people paying their fair share of tax, where we actually asked organisations, businesses to pay their fair tax. And I heard the lines, tax is theft. Well, it seems that tax is theft only if you, unless you want to build a car park, in which case tax is quite okay. It's theft if you want to use it for those nasty, nasty public services. Awful if you want to build a car park, but nevertheless. It's interesting to see, we've heard Gedling compared today, and I had a look at their budget, and their council tax is actually 14% lower than our council tax. So not only are they proposing lower borrowing, their residents pay less in council tax. In fact, our council tax is the second highest in Staffordshire. And if you rank the 79 English Shire district authorities, we're number 25. We're in the wrong place. We're at the end that expects more tax from our residents. And if you look at our comparators, actually, it's not that we're slightly higher. If you look at Stafford, they're 23% less. You look at Staffordshire Moorlands, 24% less. You look at Tamworth, 21% less. For some reason, we like to raise council tax. Now, I cannot support that. I think our residents have struggled enough and do not need to see ever increasing council tax under this administration. So I'm afraid I will not be supporting the administration's budget tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Andy Fear.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Well, interesting. Perhaps Councillor Jones this time has a bit more faith in himself. I don't know. I mean, I thought he summed up Labour's pessimism when he said we didn't put it to a vote at the Finance Scrutiny Committee because we couldn't convince anyone and they'd all vote against us. Well, maybe that's where we are now. Who knows? I'm very pleased with this budget. What we've got here is very straightforward, a choice. It's a choice between a Labour dystopia, one again of finding reasons to do nothing, watching and managing decay at best, against a council administration which actually wants to take our town forward. This is a good budget. It builds on our past achievements including things like opening sporting facilities rather than closing them down, for example. Yeah, I heard the groan, but the truth sometimes hurts, doesn't it? We've got due concern for the present. The important thing to remember here is that our council tax rise is very, very substantially beneath the rate of inflation. And what's more, again, we hear from the Labour Party, there isn't a proper alternative budget. There are just party political amendments. If we're going to have, as was sort of hinted at there, not quite said, but sort of hinted at there, that we shouldn't have a council tax rise at all, what services would Labour cut? Would they cut street cleaning? Would they cut the refuse service? You know? So this would be rather interesting, wouldn't it? Again, I think the difference is, rather than just wring our hands, this administration has got a budget which looks to the future, a future that will regenerate our town, to put to use the money that the government, the national government, has given us. And again, maybe here we could think about the New Testament of all places, where, as I recall, when the owner of, was it the vineyard, went away and gave his talents to various people, it was the people who invested that money and made it work, rather than those who buried it in the ground and sat on it, who were praised at that juncture. And that's what we have here, a vision to try and make things work. Heaven's sake, to propose something that would give money back to the government when we've tried so hard to get some is absolutely extraordinary. And it is also interesting, isn't it? I don't own a motor car, but the intrinsic hatred that socialism has for individual choice, being able to travel when you want and so forth, shrieks out of this debate. If we do not regenerate this, we do not attract people to our town, we have no future. But then Labour has no vision for a future anyway. This budget does, and that's why we should vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Councillor John Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the comments just been made that the government has given money and we'll lose it. But have the government given us money for us to borrow any extra, to be in debt for years to come? It doesn't quite make sense. We could have spent the money on something that would have been useful without all the debt. But what will the taxpayers of the borough gain from this budget? Decreasing services. As we've seen in the, we used to call it salami slicing, where you just, over the years, you just slice little slices, slice. So the hope is the residents don't know that the services are decreasing. Well, I'm afraid, go up there and ask people. When they see our services being decreased with litter and whatever, strewn everywhere, our services have decreased. And also they'll be paying back this debt for many years to come. Selling off our assets, selling council-owned land, the Kill Golf Course being the main asset, still in the green belt. You can't build on the green belt as far as I know. If you intend to take the golf course out of the green belt, it will through the local plan. What if the planning inspector won't allow development in the green belt? We will be left with millions of pounds in debt. I can't vote for this budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Paul Waring.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually think that this budget's quite a remarkable feat given the levels of inflation, and also the fact that, in my opinion, we've been able to give very fair increases to all the members of staff. And I think the officers and indeed the member for finance should be congratulated for all the work that they've done and what they've achieved. But just returning to borrowing for a moment, I don't think that it should ever be carried out lightly. But the actual multiplier of 3 that the Labour group suggested, if you look at the capital programme over the term it relates to, the actual multiplier is in fact less than 1.5 in any case. So it's well within the parameters that they've suggested, but the actual period of time is slightly less. Borrowing is quite a normal practice for almost every business, wherever it may be. And this is part of an ambitious but nevertheless sound plan, and it shouldn't be feared. It will also be scrutinised each and every year of the 10-year cycle. So if there were to be any significant shortfalls, there could be a rethink to ensure that the borrowing levels remain prudent. Either way, the Labour group need not worry about the levels of borrowing because they're not likely to have to be in control of it for quite a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waring. Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that in moving his budget and opposing the Labour amendments tonight, the Leader of the Council has had questions by Councillor Brockie on Town Centre Development, Councillor Grocott on the Castle Car Park, Councillor Rees on Hotel Interest, Councillor Richards on Midway Costs and Funding, Councillor Williams on County Council ownership of Borough project sites, Councillor Stubbs on evidence and consultation for projects. None of those have been answered thus far. I'm hoping he's going to come in. I was wondering if it's because he simply doesn't have the answers or because he's fantasising about the Simon Tagg statue advanced by Councillor Sweeney tonight. Councillor Waring, we are not against borrowing. We just want to ensure that we can actually pay it back. That's at the heart of the amendments that we've put forward. And I do agree with Councillor Fear in one respect. We do face a clear choice. But that clear choice is for every member to exercise their legal obligations tonight to vote on a budget, to vote for a budget that is reckless, devoid of evidence and devoid of certainty, or to reject it in the name of financial prudence that doesn't put this council at the risk of bankruptcy in future years. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. Councillor Mark Holland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's difficult for me to say. It's difficult for me to say things and to phrase them in a way that is considered acceptable in the council. I don't think anybody here seriously believes that the Labour Party is a party of deficit hawks and low tax zealots. But that seems to be the position that they've painted themselves into. I'm afraid I will rise to what Councillor Jones put to me because it deserves an answer. And the answer is that I won't take lessons from a Labour Party that doubled council tax when it was running Staffordshire County Council. I will not take lessons from a Labour Party, some of whose members are with us today, who shamefully voted for a 70% hike in the Kidsgrove Town precept in years gone by. The Labour Party is simply not, they are simply not a low tax party. They've explained to us very eloquently tonight that they would like to see less borrowing. They've explained that they would not like to see taxes rise. And yet I don't see their schedule of cuts. I don't see the services they'd like to cut. I don't see the hard choices that they would like to make harder in the future. I remember when I was first elected to this authority, it was 2011, and council tax was frozen that year, not thanks to a Labour administration and not thanks to anybody in this building or in the civic centre that preceded it really, but thanks to the Conservative government, which at the time was offering a council tax freeze to local authorities that could demonstrate that they could keep their finances under check. And that was a freeze that was repeated in future years. So Councillor Jones's sums are not, I would suggest, an accurate representation of the gap, the gulf that exists between a Conservative Party that spends wisely and keeps their council tax rises to the absolute bare minimum, and a Labour Party that taxes, spends and borrows. And we've seen the consequences of reckless taxing, spending and borrowing in government. Perhaps it is the ghost of Labour authorities past that haunts the leadership of the Labour group in the room tonight. I will be voting for the budget, and I sincerely hope that there are still some members on my side who would like to talk about some of the excellent components of the budget and the strategy and the capital spending that we're looking to lay out for the future. But if I'm voting for this budget for one reason, it is this. Inflation today is 10%. It is falling. It's fallen for the third month in a row. But we are proposing, the administration tonight is proposing a tax rise of less than 2%. That is a real terms tax cut for the people of Newcastle Borough. It is as low as we could reasonably make it, in line with the things that we want to achieve and the vision that we have for this borough. So I should be voting for the budget tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Joan Wielden.
I'm new to the council at the last elections and come from a corporate background. Blue chip companies and small and medium-sized enterprises all borrow. They do it to advance and improve using reserves as a false betterment. Nobody does that, whatever the size their business. They'd have nothing left to rely on when an emergency arose. I think the council run by the Conservative group is actually thinking ahead and making sure that we always have something for a rainy day. I have a serious concern from the gentlemen and the ladies who I've heard from the Labour group, massaging figures and facts and coming out with emotive statements simply to gain headlines in the Evening Sentinel is a serious concern of mine. The budget is commercial, it's robust, and it's pragmatic and should be applauded by all. Much better to do that rather than have unsubstantiated and ill-founded debate.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon. And finally, Councillor Sue Moffat.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It says in 2.9 of the report, careful monitoring of the financial position will be required over coming weeks, leading to prompt corrective action when necessary. As a member of the Economy and Place Scrutiny Committee, I've asked since last May for a detailed alternative plan B or C, including anticipated cost of materials and borrowing, to be produced as a safeguard to mitigate against the further consequences, as you put in the report, of the coronavirus and the cost of living crisis on the council's financial position. This is also to ensure the best possible uplift and regeneration of the area, including the town centre ambitions and beyond. If we are borrowing, it should be to generate an aspirational, green and secure future for all of the people of Newcastle today and in the future. When can we expect for these detailed and transparent alternative plans to be made available for all of us to see? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. So that's everyone who's indicated they wish to speak. And so we're now, that concludes the debate on the proposal. And I will now put the matter to the vote, which again, sorry? Oh, it doesn't say. Ah, right, okay. Councillor Tagg to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the contributions from everybody from all sides. I think the debate is good to have, but you know, we have to pick up some things that were said again from the Labour group here, and that reference to a freeze. I mean, Councillor Jones just put amendments forward on a budget, which were obviously debated and put down. But I didn't see anywhere there that he was putting forward a freeze on council tax. Now he's actually talking about it when his amendment has fallen. I find that quite odd. And then that sort of looking back, I'd remind the Labour members, they ran this council for 30 years. And I think when council tax builds up, it's an accumulative effect of rises and increases. When I got on the council in 2003, we just had a 4.99% rise. And then for the next 3 years while they were in power, they did another 4.9, 4.9, 4.9. And just at the start of that, the county council, thank you for reminding me, Councillor Holland, did a 12% increase 1 year. So I will take no lectures from the Labour group on council tax rises. I think that is quite clear from those facts. Councillor Williams, obviously you're saying we shouldn't be putting any money into future high streets funds. It should all be coming from the all town deals. It should all be coming from the government. The actual, and has happened elsewhere, has happened with Kidsgrove Sports Centre, is happening with the other schemes in Kidsgrove, is happening with town deals all over the country. There is match funding that comes in, and it's to get things up and running. If you remember, there was a derelict council offices on the Rycroft side, one that was very expensive to demolish because of the asbestos. That was done with Future High Streets Fund money and cleared that site and has readied it now for that regeneration, which will eventually have the Aspire HQ and some housing on there, and also the car park, which we've discussed at length tonight, will start off that development, and then hopefully we'll get onto York Place as part of the plan that has been set out as we move forward. Councillor Williams mentioned salami slicing, doesn't it? There's no salami slicing in this budget, but it just reminds me of, I've used that phrase before, salami, you can say it again, is that when we took control, we had a council that had suffered salami slicing to its officer ranks, that left us with no elections officer, no audit officer, a finance officer that was suspended. And that led to the disaster of the election of 2017, when 1,500 people didn't get a vote in the general election. And that led to the downfall of the Labour administration, and they haven't come back since. So that's what salami slicing does it for you. We have an officer rank now, particularly in the middle area, which is strong, with good officers that we've employed. And I'd just like to, before I finally move the budget for the vote, Madam Mayor, is to thank our staff in the finance team, Sarah and the team that are there, who come to the meeting to see the fruits of their work coming to fruition. And also thank he thanks me a lot of the times in this meeting, but I think I put my hat off to Stephen Sweeney, because I get all the glory, if you want to call it that, at this meeting of preparing the budget. But at cabinets and at scrutiny, he's defending this budget, and as he's building it up through the year to get to where we are now, which is a brilliant budget in my view, which gives that low council tax rise of 1.99. And as Councillor Jones conceded, we're honouring our pledge to the electorate that we made in May. And I'm not going to say anything more, Madam Mayor, other than to say let's put it to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Right, so fine. So members, that concludes the debate finally. On the proposal, I will now put the matter to the vote, which again must be a named vote. The monitoring officer will now take and record the vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As before, I shall read out each name in turn. Please clearly indicate when you hear your name, whether you're voting for or against or not voting. Councillor Adcock.
For.
Councillor Allport.
Against.
Councillor Barker. Councillor Betley-Smith.
For.
Councillor Brockie.
Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Bryan.
For.
Councillor Burnett.
For.
Councillor Crisp.
For.
Councillor Diamond. Councillor Edgington-Plunkett.
Against.
Councillor Fear.
For.
Councillor Fox-Hewitt. Councillor Gorton.
Against.
Councillor Grocott.
Against.
Councillor Heeson. Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Hutchison.
For.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jones. Dave Jones. Councillor Lawley.
Against.
Councillor Moffat. Councillor Northcott. Councillor Panther.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Rees. Councillor Richards.
Against.
Councillor Skelding.
For.
Councillor Stubbs.
Against.
Councillor Sweeney. Councillor John Tagg. Councillor Simon Tagg. Councillor Talbot. Councillor Jill Waring. Councillor Paul Waring.
For.
Councillor Wilden. Councillor Gary White.
For.
Councillor Simon White. Councillor Wilkes.
For.
Councillor Jill Williams. Councillor John Williams. And Councillor Wright. Thank you.
(24 to 18), so the budget is approved. Members, the next substantive item of business is the adoption of a pay policy statement for the council. This is agenda item 6, which is at pages 123 to 134 of your agenda pack. I understand Councillor Simon Tagg intends to move the recommendation on page 123 and that Councillor Sweeney will be seconding. Councillor Simon Tagg, will you please now introduce the pay policy statement report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This always comes along with the budget at every budget setting meeting, and of course it comes out of the requirement of the Local Government Act in 2011, brought in by the Conservative government to allow for openness and accountability in local pay. So there's the format of the report follows the usual format, and as you'll see in the appendix, there's a list there of the pay grades and the amounts obviously relating to various grades within the council. This year, though, it has changed slightly from last year to reflect the development of our leadership structure structure, and the fact that I think we'll hear more about it later, that one of our directors will be leaving the council soon, and this has created a revised structure which the chief exec has shared with myself as group leader, which I've shared with my group, and also shared with the Labour group leader as well. So if it looks different from last year, that's because of those facts that we have a changed structure, but it does provide a robust and collaborative leadership team structure going forward, which we can benchmark against going forward. And I think if anybody's got any further questions about that, I'm willing to answer them. But I think also if they've got any detailed ones, then please address those to the chief executive, and we're sure to answer those. And really, that's my introduction to this report. I would move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Stephen Sweeney, do you wish to second the recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've nothing to add to what Councillor Tagg says, so I happily second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, we now move to the debate on this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising your hand if you wish to speak?
Happy to move to the vote, Madam Mayor.
So there are no speakers, so move to the vote. Yeah, just move to the vote, yeah. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. I was waiting for a name vote then. That's carried then, thank you. The leader's statement, there was agenda item 4 which was missed. On your tables you will have little leaflets here. The tickets are now on sale for the charity event being held at Keel Hall on Friday the 31st of March. And the theme is the Roaring Twenties Casino Night, and will also include the Newcastle Borough Heroes Awards. Tickets after a big fight are now down to £55 each, and further details are available from Jeff Durham. But I think you've got menus and means of paying inside the leaflet. The proceeds of the ball will be going to the Veterans and Home Start, two very good charities, and I hope that you'll be able to support this. And the only other announcement I've got is on the 2nd of March, there'll be scrutiny training session for those who were unable to attend before Christmas. It will be an online session starting at 6 p.m. and members can join from Castle House rather than from at home if they wish. If you are able to attend, please let Democratic Services know as soon as possible, indicating if you will be joining from home or Castle House. Member training in other areas, including planning and audit and standards, is being arranged, and members will be advised of the details and dates in due course. Thank you. So now we'll go back to agenda item number 7, which is the statement of the Leader of the Council. And a copy of this can be found on pages 7 to 9 of your supplementary agenda pack. I'm going to ask Councillor Simon Tagg if he would like to introduce this statement. I will then invite members to put questions to the leader or relevant portfolio holder. I will take each paragraph of the statement in turn and will invite up to 3 questions at a time before I ask the leader to respond. If I could remind members, this isn't a debate. And once the leader has responded, there's no right for members to reply. Councillor Tagg, would you like to introduce your statement, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And moving the statement for obviously questions and comments, I'd just like to a couple of updates on the Wallis Quarry Odour. It says there that we would share with the Economic Development Scrutiny Committee. That is right, but also it will go to the Health and Partnership Scrutiny Committee as well. That a double hatter for the report back on the standstill, when the standstill period comes down to 5 months. And then on item 3, Newcastle-under-Lyme 850 celebrations, I'm pleased to announce, I was hoping to announce the 3, but unfortunately only 2 sponsors so far for the Heroes Awards, and that will be Staffordshire County Council, who are sponsoring the Community Champion Award, and then the Synetic Systems, as you know, is closely associated with Port Vale Football Club, but it's Synetic Systems will be sponsoring the Young Heroes Award, and I'm waiting still here on the Lifetime Achievement Award, but we'll have a sponsor for that also. So I move the statement be commented on and questioned.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, we note in paragraph 1 that Cabinet met on the 6th of December 2022, the 10th of January and the 7th of February. And we move to paragraph 2, which is about Wally's Quarry odour issues. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 2? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's good to read on page 1 of the leader's report that Wally's Quarry remains a top priority. Council has been informed that Wally's Quarry had agreed in September 22 to stop landfill gas odours from causing significant problems for residents. And a recent press release from the company on the 26th of January talks about a consistent and continued record of improvement. I would argue that local residents would disagree with the word consistent as we continue to have spikes in odour emissions being felt within the ward and beyond, something I'm keenly aware of when performing my duties in the ward. We note that in the budget that's now been agreed, there is 100k set aside in case of further legal action against the company. Although it is a relief to see this costing, it is obviously significantly down from the 1 million previously set aside and agreed by cross-party support. Can the administration and officers guarantee this ward councillor and her residents that there is still both a will and the resources to take any necessary action and to continue to hold Wally's Quarry Limited to account, including the funds to take the company to court for breach of the abatement notice and to secure damages for residents?
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Joan Wheeldon.
I'd just like to reiterate something I mentioned earlier, and that's the point of asking the leader of the council if he agrees with the enhanced communication that's now taking place between the parties, is working to reassure people that everything is being done at Wally's Quarry to solve the problem.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon. I've got no other questions. Anybody else? No. Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you. And it's good to hear from two, ward councillors from the areas that are still affected by this. And I completely appreciate what Councillor Brown said about the spikes, and we are monitoring that. And we will hold the company to account. And let's not forget the Environment Agency's role in this to continue to hold the company to account as well. I think we'll wait for that officer report at the end of the standstill period. As we know, when the abatement notice agreement, the legal agreement around that was finalised, it did stop the clock again on the standstill period. And of course, that ends in March. So as I say in my report, we'll get a report to Cabinet and then take it from there. And that will also influence then the decision to take any further action. And then obviously the financial cost of that will then come into focus for the council to decide. Thank you again to Councillor Joan Wheeldon. I think, we know more information now from the company, and also the council has more information on its website as well for residents. And I keep plugging when anybody contacts me on social media about information about this is, the Cabinet meetings have a report to every meeting, first item on the agenda still about the issues to do with Wally's Quarry. And then there's a wealth of information on the site. And also we are, credit where credit is due sometimes, that the company are providing much more information now, and also they're providing sort of warnings when there are issues. But I think we're all on the side of the community in this. We want this solved for a long period, and to bring this sort of environmental disaster that we've had for the last couple of years to an end. And we'll continue to press that through the levers that the council has. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, paragraph 3 is about Newcastle-under-Lyme 850 celebrations. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 3? Okay, so I've got 3 people who would like to ask questions. Richard Gorton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope my questions / comments are positive. They are certainly intended to be so. The leader's statement refers to must put my glasses on, a lasting legacy of the borough's 850th celebrations. Would the council leader not agree that one important legacy of the celebrations should be the relaunch of Newcastle Civic Society, which, as Councillor Tagg will recall, was sadly disbanded in 2020. Could I ask the leader to use the influence and resources of the Borough Council to convene or host a meeting of interested parties with the aim of relaunching the Civic Society? My second point, Madam Mayor, is that the statement refers to a number of history talks that will take place as part of the 850th celebrations. And these talks celebrate the life and works of several notable people associated with our borough. In my view, there is one notable omission, and it could be argued that the fact that we are able to celebrate the 850th anniversary as an independent borough is down to this person. And I refer to Josiah Wedgwood MP, who represented this borough in Parliament for 30 years, and who between 1929 and 1931 led the opposition to the Stoke Corporation Bill, which was designed to absorb Newcastle into Stoke. He was a friend of Winston Churchill, and along with Churchill was an early and persistent critic of appeasement. And in my mind, the other aspect of his life and achievements which should be celebrated is that he used his influence as an MP to secure the release from Germany of many Jewish refugees who were fleeing from Nazi persecution. For these reasons, is it possible to look at the programme with a view to incorporating something that celebrates Josiah Wedgwood's life and achievements? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Jill Williams.
I agree with the anniversary celebrations of our borough's 850 year. My concern is the threat to our heritage from Staffs County Council, who want to build 100 houses on Wallsfield, Oon Avenue. Wallsfield is on the list of the borough's Green Heritage Network. This list includes sites in Woolstanton Marsh, Poolfields and 9 other sites throughout the borough. As leader of this council and a county councillor, Councillor Simon Tagg, could you use your influence to make sure Ballsfield is protected as part of our borough's 850 years celebrations and make sure all sites on this list are protected?
Thank you, Councillor Jill Williams. Councillor John Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It was like organising the celebrations. Will there be a group of people, and will Labour councillors be involved with that in that group? My other point is quite disturbing to me, is the vandalising of the borough's crest. We see on some paperwork that the crest is in front of you, Madam Mayor, that the castle's been taken out and the 850 years has been imposed on that crest. Now, I think the crest is important to the borough, and I believe that the only person that can alter it or agree with it is the monarch that can alter that crest, and you've got to have the permission from the monarch to alter the crest. And I think it's sad that we are celebrating 550 years with a 550 years, 850 years, you apologise, 850 years, with the vandalism of the crest. The crest should be there with numbers underneath of the years, but not vandalising that crest. Could Councillor Tagg give me some information about that and why? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Williams. Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond to those three?
Thank you for that. I'll take them in the order they came. Councillor Gorton, I think, yes, the idea of that civic pride that the Civic Society had been rekindled. I think you're aware we relaunching the Blue Plaque scheme, which of course was something that was taken forward by the Civic Society. And I think through these history talks and history, particularly based at the library, at the museum, we can certainly begin to canvass support for that, and it's all to do with willing volunteers coming forward, isn't it? And Jim Morgan and all of those people, aren't in the first sprites of youth anymore to lead these things. We need the new people to come forward. So certainly be asking our museum staff to look out for that and be aware that we need to do that on that. And I think it's a brilliant suggestion relating to Josiah Wedgwood, and I'll certainly pass that on to Simon White, who's our heritage champion in relation to 850, has heard that, and we'll certainly talk to the museum about getting that included. And of course, the bit about protecting the borough's independence from Stoke. Of course, in the 90s, there was also the threat to the borough that the late Alcy Ashley MBE was involved in fighting that, as well as mayor at the time as well. So there's a long history of us fighting our independence, particularly in the 20th century. And we must continue that wary of that as we go forward into this future years. And this 850 is a great way of really promoting our independence as a borough. And I'm plugging it everywhere I go, as you can see, which is really important. Councillor Williams, I always thought it was on the planning committee then. I wish I was for this application, because I would have spoken against it on issues to do with flooding, actually, because I know how the bottom of Sparch Hollow floods so much, and I think that again, we're not in a planning committee here, and I'm not on it, so I can give my own views. But I think when I've grew up in the area, and when I think of Baldy's Fields, I think of that bit in the middle that the school have got that long lease that is county council owned land that is used by kids of all ages, footballers. It's had access for many, many years. And I think when we talk about, I watched some of the planning meeting back, I saw the comments of Councillor Williams, Councillor Jones, and also Councillor Jill Williams. And I think there was the land which is going to have these houses on, if they win an appeal, which of course is not necessarily the case. All the pathways lead to the bit in the middle, which is the grassed area, which is where I believe to be Baldy's Field, and I used to play on. So I think there's to say there is no green space around that area is just wrong. And I think, that did come out, as I heard at the planning committee, but when I watched it back, I was thinking that as a local resident that the full picture didn't come out about that. But I think that application had issues to do with flooding. I think this council should fight as it always does, fight the appeal on behalf of the planning committee who voted to refuse that. John Williams, thank you for that. I think just for your information, the heritage panel met over 18 months really, because we had to be early preparing this, and that was cross-party, particularly obviously members that were on the council then, and of course we've taken it through scrutiny as well a couple of times, and then just before we finalised the programme, we took it through scrutiny one final time for people to put views in, which is really important from cross-party. But not only that, people outside the council as well. As for the logo, I want to reassure him that we haven't vandalised or scrapped the crest. What we did do was use some elements of it separately and created in-house a logo specifically to be used for the 860. You will not see 860. 850. That's 10 years time. You will not see that logo again after the celebration, and you'll see we've got the logo here, and on all our official mayoral correspondence and other correspondence, it will have the borough's crest as it should be. But this is a specialised logo just for the celebration, just to reassure you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. I have one more speaker, Councillor David Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What do you get somebody for their 850th wedding anniversary? I have to say, I'm a recent convert to this. Originally, I thought, well, how do you celebrate 850? It's not 100, it's not, 500. Those are numbers that I'd equate with a big celebration. And I thought, I'm not really sure about this. But actually, I will applaud and say that there's some good work on this, and I've witnessed this in my home. My daughter came back from school, from the fine secondary school in Madeley, with a thing from her art club saying to produce some artwork. I mean, I'm not plugging that you should all vote for her, but as a kid who's very keen in art, there's not much that encourages art in schools. And for that to encourage, I think is a real positive. I think that's really great. There is something I'm going to be a little bit flexible with a potential conflict of interest, and note that I work for the Harper Keele Vet School and also do work for the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. But as part of this 850th celebration, I really hope we can recognise the fantastic historical work of Thomas Mayer, who operated the veterinary hospital just across the road at the bottom of the Brampton. Thomas Mayer was a veterinary surgeon in Newcastle. As they were at the time, it wasn't a recognised profession. He fought tirelessly for recognition of the veterinary profession. It was actually one of the leading lights behind what eventually became the Veterinary Surgeons Act, the establishment of a royal charter, and the establishment of the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. Now, in this 850th year, we will also be celebrating our first cohort of students, not quite graduating. We couldn't quite sync that up properly. I'm sorry, Simon. But we are celebrating what will be one of the jewels in the crown. There are only 9 veterinary schools in the UK. And in fact, we're the only non-metropolitan council to have a veterinary school. And we should celebrate that, because actually in our heritage, we had a person who played a key role in the establishment of the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. And I think if we're going to celebrate this going forward, I feel that that should be a significant element of that. And I'm sure we at the Harperkill Vet School would be really, really open to welcoming members of the council to have a look around and see what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No more questions on this one, Madam Mayor.
No
okay, so just to sum up then, I think thank you, Councillor Jones, for the response. I think it's for some of us, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, isn't it, to do the 850? Because 50 years. Most of us. Well, some people remember the 73, don't they? Which was the 800, and we always hark back to how it used to be. And I think we've tried to, particularly the legacy side, try to create something that can be remembered in the future here as well. And the pubs are open in a very nice town centre. But the person you suggested relating to the veterinary school, I think, is a great idea, and I think that person is on the list. But I think tying it into that veterinary school and the offer that Councillor Jones will liaise with them to get some sort of something up and running, please look into that. And I've looked in the direction of three Simons, Simon McKenny and Simon White, to take that forward. But I think it's a great opportunity, and I think the point we made as well is these ideas can continue to come forward, because we're developing the programme, and anything anybody has to come forward should be included in, if we can, and badged as 850. Thank you.
Okay. Members, paragraph 4 is about the urban tree planting programme. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 4? So I have 3 people who would like to comment on this, and can we start with Councillor Stubbs, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very supportive of this programme. Obviously, we've been successful within Talkenbutt Lane with Clough Hall Park. We're also hopeful that we'll be successful with Corbett Hill. But can I ask the leader if the programme also extends to, sadly, there's been antisocial behaviour with some of the trees in Clough Hall Park. Will the programme replace it's a small number, it's 3 or 4 trees that have been damaged by antisocial behaviour? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Adcock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to welcome what a commitment this is. What a great way to celebrate the 850th by having this 850 trees planted on the outskirts of Silverdale, for one. I know there's other sites also coming down the line. And I think what a massive benefit to the environment in terms of our commitment to carbon capture and our commitment to becoming a net zero council. I think this is a really positive step. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adcock. Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's great to see that the Newcastle Borough Council is continuing to take proactive steps towards achieving our net carbon zero goals through the urban tree planting strategy programme that we see here. I am pleased to see more tree planting taking place in areas such as Morton Parade in my Maybank ward. These Borough Council efforts towards enhancing our green spaces and promoting nature recovery are commendable and have a positive impact on the environment for the residents in the urban area. I learned this week we will also be planting a wildflower meadow on the Sandy Lane green space with the help of children from the Maybank Infant School. This is happening in this area after many trees were planted there in recent years. Does the leader agree with me that the enhancements at Sandy Lane are good for the health of local residents and much better than the plans of the previous Labour administration? When they ran the council, they tried to build those plans through to build houses on the Sandy Lane site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. Councillor Simon Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the comments. I think I'll take them in order again. Councillor Stubbs, I think yes, we need to look at though, because again, when you plan, as a part, when we bring forward our tree management plan, it'd be quite obvious, and this happens all over the country, probably all over the world, of course it does, that when you plant trees, not all of them survive. Weather conditions affect them, and also we expect to see, some will be vandalised by the very nature. So we do account for that, and they will be replaced as and when we can. I think thank you, Rupert, for your comment, and I think that's a great development down there to have that that historic lime forest to be put back in a very small way, really, but to also tie in with the 850 anniversary. I'm sure you'll be involved with your fellow ward councillor in the planting of those when that comes to the front. And then thank you to Councillor Hutchinson. Yes, that piece of land, and I could say to Councillor Stubbs, who was welcoming these green spaces being planted on, that when he was in charge of the council and his successor after were bringing sites such as Sandy Lane forward for sale, and now we've protected them and are planting trees. And really pleased that there's been some money for a wildflower meadow. There's also going one on the a green space up in the Westlands on Winchester Drive as well, and that's come through. Both of these have been funded through the Staffordshire County Council's Climate Change Action Fund, and residents will be involved up in the Westlands in planting that wildflower meadow. And as Councillor Hutchinson said, school children from Maybank Infant School will be involved as they were with the trees on Sandy Lane. And I think what we want to see is these being adopted by the local community. And I think, as we've seen in Maybank and as we've seen in the Westlands, that can happen, as we've seen in the pump track up in Kidsgrove as well, that these can be adopted by local communities, whether they're young or old, for the better of the environment and also to help our carbon reduction plan. Thank you.
As there are no more speakers on paragraph 4, we'll move on to paragraph 5, which is about the future High Street Fund update. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 5? Got 2 councillors who'd like to speak. Councillor Wendy Brockey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The leader's statement refers to the fact that some of the plans for Rycroft and York Place are already underway, which is laudable, but many of the plans remain in the realm of aspiration, and there is room, in view of that, to have some negotiation of scale, if not of necessity. Can the leader assure the public that what is being undertaken in their name and with public money is going to be under continual review and will remain affordable and responsive to the real needs of residents and businesses?
Thank you, Councillor Brockey. Councillor John Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll repeat the question I asked earlier on this evening. Do the County Council own nearly half of that site? And what's their involvement in the redevelopment of that site? Thank you.
Richard Gorton.
Thank you for calling me, Madam Mayor. It just strikes me, reading the leader's statement again, that the final paragraph of item 5 stresses the part projects like the multi-storey car park and the hotel could play in the regeneration of the town centre. And that strikes me, Madam Mayor, as an important claim that could in turn raise all sorts of expectations. Now, in light of this, will the leader ensure that when the Economy and Place Scrutiny Committee next meet, members will receive a report on the future High Street Fund, and that report is accompanied by the business cases for both the car park and the hotel, together with any other research and data, so that the scrutiny committee can reach a view on the contribution these projects could make to the regeneration of the town centre.
Thank you, Councillor Gorton. Councillor Simon Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you. Taking them in reverse order, yes, Councillor Gorton, I think, and the chair has asked for that at the last meeting, and there was I think we a lot more information given at the last presentation. I think that can grow and be the conduit we're looking for to have that scrutiny. And of course, it's available to all members to view it. And obviously, well, I'll keep putting it on the leader's statement for questions as well as we progress on the scheme. Councillor Williams, of course, the County Council, you will remember, are involved in the ownership issue dating back to 2011. There are partners on this project, working across the board with them on Town Deal and Future High Street funds. So what we're looking to do is include them in this project if they want to, or they can relinquish their interest in the site. And I can say that negotiations are taking place at the moment on the level of their involvement, and also that will be concluded before we obviously move to a final decision to get our contractor to start building the car park. And then Councillor Brockie, for the life of me now, your question is yes, sorry. No, Councillor Holland. I think, yeah, I remember now. It was similar to what Councillor Williams said. I think it's that scrutiny we're looking for and you're looking for, and that can be through the environment, not the environment, Economic Development Committee, and of course through this leader statement. And again, I would say our officers are open to answer any questions from shadow portfolio holders or from any members on the plans for the town centre, because transparency is key, and we're there to do that. And the guy himself is there, sitting there, Simon Mack, who can answer those questions of detail as we move forward on these really important projects.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. As there are no more speakers on paragraph 5, we'll move on to paragraph 6. Is about the electrical vehicle charging strategy. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 6? Speakers on this, Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think this EV strategy is very timely, considering about 7 years away from the government's proposed ban on petrol and diesel new cars for sale. So it's really good to see that in the car park, we're going to get 39 new charging points. But research by the Ordnance Survey showed that about 24% of households in the borough don't have access to off-street parking. So, I mean, at the moment, early adopters on terraces, you'll see the power cables coming out of letterboxes and windows trailing into the electric cars. So going forward in the future, what are we going to do with problems with parking on terrace houses for people? They're going to have a lot more electric cars than there are now.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Councillor Adcock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, a very welcome environmental piece here. We've all noticed electric vehicle charging points popping up all over the place, including a very welcome one on Silverdale Parade. I think the important part here is at the end with the plans for the new car park, including 39 EV charging bays. Does the leader agree with me that this is yet another reason why the Midway car park would be untenable, as it may not be able to support that infrastructure that the future will demand, with more and more people switching to hybrid and electric? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adcock. Councillor Simon Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Chris, for that. That's a really pertinent question, isn't it? And in the strategy, it says we need to move quickly to rapid charging obviously points, and also use street furniture in streets where there is, lampposts, etc., can be retrofitted for electric charging, and also providing within a 5-minute walk of residential streets such as terrace streets for rapid charging as well, and also workplace charging. Of course, you think about it, you use your car very little. It's ending up parked somewhere most of the day, isn't it? Not necessarily outside your house in a terrace street. It's parked at your work or on a car park, etc. So there are ways which we can do that. But I think it's really important, the point you've raised, and we don't want to have a postcode lottery where parts of the borough have got lovely driveways where they can have charging infrastructure, and then you've got compacted terrace streets streets, and there are a lot of those across the borough that aren't having that that same standard. So I think it's a key part of the strategy, and I think it also need government intervention, because this is a big issue across the country. And I think, you know, the government are already backing this strategy with money, and made the county council the lead on that, and we as a district are jumping on board with them. And as we've said, we're doing our local network, and that's a very good point made by Councillor Adcock about the midway. Of course, we can't even have pay on exit on the midway because of the design of it. And of course, could you imagine having, you know, electric charging points in a flooded area of the car park, because we know midway becomes regularly flooded, or we have to close the midway for a long period. So that's why another reason why we need this new car park, and why we put it in, and we're making it a priority on the site on Rycroft. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. As there are no more speakers on that paragraph, we'll move on to paragraph 7, is about Staffordshire-wide climate change communication plan. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 7? Speaker on this, Councillor Panter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is indeed great news that this council is joining forces with the county council and other districts and borough authorities for a joint communication plan to ensure that we can provide clear and consistent messages to our residents and businesses about the challenges that are posed by climate change and the positive impact that they can make on the environment. What additional measures are we taking to ensure that small businesses are fully engaged in these efforts to promote sustainability and reduce the carbon emissions from their operations? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Panter. Councillor Simon Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Panter, for that. I mean, that's another good point, because businesses, big and small, whether they employ hundreds or the sole trader, in the next few years will have to bring forward a carbon reduction plan and show that they're net zero in their operations as we all move towards the net zero targets and the government's requirement on that. I think what we have is the Staffordshire Business Environment Network, which is free to join for businesses, and also has got you can access a free carbon counter, and a free carbon plan can be put together on behalf of the business. So I'd encourage all businesses to do that. And also, important thing we can do, I think, and we have a database of businesses that pay business rates across the borough, and we use this quite effectively when we did the COVID loans, wasn't it? And we actually built our database of contacts with businesses, and I think we could use that to actually put out some messages to businesses of where they can get help from the SBEN, as it's called. And also, I think the council tax bill that is due to go out from the borough in April does contain information about carbon reduction. Also, the county council leaflet will also include some tips and websites and phone numbers to phone for help on how to increase energy efficiency. So there are ways which we can do that as I've just described. Thank you, Councillor Panter.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. As there are no more speakers on that paragraph, we'll move on to paragraph 8. It's about the Police, Fire and Crime Commission. It's Safer Streets Round. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 8? I've got one speaker, Councillor Andrew Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, I know that there are a lot of residents who are concerned about the antisocial behaviour and crime, particularly in the town centres. So I'm pleased to see that the £140,000 of government investment has been secured for Newcastle by Ben Adams via the government's Safer Streets Fund. Now, I see that the council is looking at a street pasture scheme. I believe that this operates in Hanley in conjunction with St John's Ambulance. Can the leader answer whether this council is looking to involve the St John's in Newcastle to triage people and hopefully ease the pressure on accident and emergency? Thank you.
Councillor Simon Tagg, would you like to respond?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Panter. I'm going to hand over to the portfolio holder, Jill Heason, to answer.
Is that me then? Yeah. Right. Thank you for the question. Yeah, we will be looking to link in with other organisations. It's been a really welcome grant funding of £8,000, and I welcome street pastors, I don't know where I got street wardens from. I welcome street pastors in the town centre, and I think they could also utilise some of the premises we've got at the moment, such as the safer spaces for women. And while I'm on about safer spaces for women, if anybody would like to volunteer, I volunteer there. Feel quite free to let me know.
Thank you, Councillor Heeson. As there are no more speakers on paragraph 8, we'll move on to paragraph 9. Is about the forward plan. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 9? Questions? So members, that concludes the leader's statement. We'll now move to the next item of business. Members, the next item of business is the report of the chairs of the scrutiny committees. This is agenda item 8, which is at page 11 of your supplementary agenda. A report is attached for the Health, Wellbeing and Environment Scrutiny Committee. Verbal updates will be given for the Economy and Place Scrutiny Committee and Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committees. Councillor Gary White, would you give your update, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the E&P Scrutiny Committee met on the 12th of December. The first agenda item which was due to be read was the town centre update through the bid. That had to be deferred due to apologies being received from the bid manager and will hopefully be heard in March. We then went on to review in detail the 850th celebrations, which was well received by everybody concerned, and a number of questions were duly asked and answered. We then went on to have an update on the Borough local plan, particularly in terms of the timings and the next stages, and it was committed to bring an update on the local plan back to the E&P scrutiny at every sitting. And we then went on to our regular item of Future High Streets Fund and town deals, and it was agreed that as that is now approaching an area of more detail in the deliverability of it, that a large amount of detail will be put together than previous, and that would be disseminated to the committee members at least 1 week before, so that they would have chance to read, digest and to prepare any questions. I think it's also worthy of note that it was agreed a subcommittee would be set up looking and scrutinising housing provision and affordable housing within the borough. 5 councillors have been nominated and accepted now to sit on that committee, and we expect its first sitting within the next month. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Mark Holland, would you give your update, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee met on the 19th of January, where we did some very detailed and, might I say, good-natured budget scrutiny of the budget that we have just heard tonight. The committee will meet again on the 30th of March, when we will consider the Q3 Finance and Performance reports, the asset management, the One Council update, and perhaps even a report on whether the statue of Councillor Tagg should depict him enthroned or on horseback.
Councillor Holland. These reports are here for information and noting. Please can the reports be received? Agenda item 9, reports of the chairs of the regulatory committees. Members, the next substantive item of business is the reports of the chairs of the regulatory committees. This is agenda item 9. The reports can be found at pages 13 and 14 of your supplementary agenda. Written reports are attached for the Audit and Standards Committee and the Licensing and Public Protection Committee. A verbal update will be given for the Planning Committee. Councillor Paul Northcote, would you please give your update?
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the Planning Committee has met twice since the last council meeting on the 23rd of November, namely the 6th of December 2022 and the 31st of January of this year. The December meeting took forward 4 major applications and 2 minor applications. There was other items of interest, which included a situation update of the breach of planning obligation concerning the 23 houses built on the former Silverdale Station and Goodshed Station Road, Silverdale. This remains very much a live issue and will no doubt feature in future agenda. Late in the evening, members requested if further planning training for members, particularly for new members that had joined the committee, could be taken into account. This request was accepted as a consensus and will be forwarded at a future date. Supplementary planning document, which was adopted in March 2012, was another item of interest. This underlined a scoring system for consideration of new nominated buildings for inclusion on the register of locally important buildings and structures, namely in Newcastle-under-Lyme. And this was a review in 2022. At that point, there was 134 items on the list, and there was a further 5 that have been nominated and included the former Methodist Church on Merrill Street and 2 other churches in Almer End and Kidsgrove. All scored over 7 out of 10, which was a criteria for the supplementary planning document that was adopted in March 2012. The list now stands at 139. At the 31st of January committee, the committee had to determine 3 major applications and 2 minor ones, including land adjacent to Hoon Avenue, which has been previously discussed here tonight. One other item of interest on the agenda, which some of the longer serving councillors will recall, occupied a rolling place on the bi-monthly agendas on the planning committee for some considerable time, dating back to the 3rd of January 2019. And due to the convoluted and protracted appeals process, the land referred to as 5 Bogs Cottages Keel received continued interest from members and public alike. The committee noted the latest update after the outcome had been decided upon by the planning inspectorate, who ruled on the appeal and quashed the enforcement notice from the council and basically allowed the planning permission for 1 mobile home in the green belt, as it's concluded that the dwelling didn't constitute inappropriate development and harm in the green belt, particularly in reference to the MPPF and the Gypsy and Travelling Community listed and such. The decision can be found at www.newcastlehave-staffs.gov.uk/Bogs Cottage. Members expressed a wish for the monitoring of this site to continue, given the inspector's numerous conditions which he attached to this decision. The next meeting of the Planning Committee is due to convene on the 28th of February. This is my report, Lady Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Northcote. These reports are here for information and noting. Please can the reports be received? Yeah, thank you. Agenda item 10. Members' questions. I have now received 2 questions for the leader and cabinet members. These can be found on page 15 of your supplementary agenda. I will ask members to read out their questions, after which I will ask the leader or the relevant cabinet member to respond. The member asking the question may then ask a supplementary question. Could I remind members that if you have a supplementary question, it must be a question and not a statement, and it must be concise, focused, and relate to the subject matter of the initial question and answer. The first question is for Councillor Philip Rees regarding trees in the Woolstanton ward. Councillor Rees, your question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Several Woolstanton residents have raised concerns about the lack of any maintenance programme for trees at Lyme Road and streets in the ward. Many trees are excessively tall or have branches that overhang drives and gardens. Residents are anxious about the potential dangers of falling heavy branches or indeed the trees, particularly with the increase in storm and wind surges that have become part of our weather pattern. In view of these concerns, is the leader of the council content with the current maintenance arrangements? If he shares the concerns expressed by residents, will he take up this matter with the county council with a view to getting a more effective maintenance programme in place?
Thank you, Councillor Rees. Councillor Simon Tagg, your response, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rees, for the question. Of course, all as councillors, we have issues with trees in our wards, highway trees. Some borough trees actually have caused issues in the past I've had to deal with as well. And I think what we need is a system which they can be reported and they can get on the work programme, and that can be dealt with. And I would say that is best done through contacting the local county council. I don't know whereabouts this will stand. It's probably Councillor Hutton, but I'm sure he'd be pleased to take up the issue with those particular residents, or if it's Councillor Salisbury, I'm sure he would do the same. So, but I think also probably Councillor Rees isn't aware that residents can also opt to carry out some work on the tree themselves if they or get a contractor to, obviously not themselves, but a contractor in, if they get permission off the county council to do some work on overhanging branches within their property. I have seen that done in my ward in the past. And also I think what I would also say is persistence as well on behalf of residents to get it up the list to be done. And ward council, borough councillors can have that impact just as much as county councillors, and I've done that in the past where it can take a while, but eventually trees are removed. And I will just say one thing: if they are really if these are dangerous trees and these are dangerous branches and they are reported for the county council and they seem to be dangerous after they've been assessed, they will be removed pretty quickly. And if the tree is diseased, they will take down a highway tree no matter how big it is if it is diseased. But again, what we can't do is take down, whether it's the borough council or it's the county council, take down trees that are healthy and that have been there for many years. Some have got TPOs and some are a statement in the community. And what I always find, and I think Councillor Sweeney finds this as well, is that everybody wants a tree cut down outside their own house because it's causing problems for them. But if any are cut down anywhere else around the estate, they kick off and save our trees. So it's sort of, there is sort of a love of trees if they don't affect you and want to see them on the street scene, but when they affect you, they're a problem. But I think there's a process to go through that's already there. I can't quicken that up, and I don't think taking it up on behalf of his residents myself, I would say the local county council is in best position to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Rees, do you have a supplementary question?
Not at this stage, no.
Thank you, Councillor Rees. And the final question is from Councillor Andrew Parker regarding Kirkham's Jewellers. Councillor Parker, your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to the portfolio holder for finance, town centres and growth. And I read with interest the recent article in the Sentinel relating to the closure of Kirkham Jewellers and the redevelopment of York Place. Would the Deputy Leader like to give the council side of the story to set the record straight?
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Stephen Sweeney, your response, please.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. I would love to. I was aghast when I read the story in the Sentinel. I've got the whole story in front of me here, but I'll read the first paragraph. The owners of a jewellery shop are staging their own protest against a multi-million-pound council regeneration scheme. Okay, could almost be the Labour Party, couldn't it? That the next line, after being given weeks to get out of their unit. Weeks to get out of their unit. We first met Mr. Kirkham on the 20th of April 2022. That's two council officers and myself to discuss the developments in York Place. Because I said before, we're an open, transparent council. And went to see him. And the way his lease worked is you had to give him 6 months notice. So we gave him 6 months notice, but he didn't want to go then, understandably, because he wanted to capture his Christmas trade. So he extended that till March, the end of March this year, 23. So I think to say from the Sentinel's point of view, I know it's a headline and it gets people to click on the website and everything else. But to say you've got to get out within weeks, yeah, weeks, but probably 45 weeks. Weeks suggests it's 4 or 5, doesn't it? Not 45 weeks, which is in fact what it is. So I want to take this opportunity to talk to that. We don't want to lose traders out of town. And the idea that we're just going to kick people out without talking to them, without offering them other premises, which we're taking around to show them there's premises they own in the town. There's a premise on Merrill Street, for example, we own. There's stuff on Lancaster Buildings we own. But he chose not to, which is entirely his choice. But the idea that we didn't engage with him and give him a few weeks to get out is just, from the Sentinel's point of view, absolute nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Parker, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do indeed. How are the council getting on with the relocation of the other businesses that are currently still situated there?
Thank
Yeah.
you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Parker. A very, very valid question. There's obviously a number of units on York Place that are still trading. A lot of them were empty when we bought the site, which, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's a very tired shopping centre, York Place. If you look at an aerial photo of Newcastle from sort of 50, 60 years ago, what we're trying to put back in its place is actually what was there before. Not a 1960s, try to look like Hanley type building that's there at the moment. The actual news of where we are, Clive Marks is up and running and is in Lancaster buildings now. Cancer Research have confirmed they have for new premises in town. It's on the planning website, but I won't publicise it too much where they're going, but it's in town. Specsavers Hearing, not yet found anywhere to relocate, but looking to stay in the town. Holland and Barrett are relocating to the High Street. If you've seen the big signs on the building next door to WH Smith's, that's where they're going. The Co-op Bank is looking to relocate elsewhere in the town. Marston and Co, unfortunately, we've lost. And tragically for myself and Councillor Fear, we've also lost the Windmill Cafe. We used to rather enjoy going to the Windmill Cafe, but he's decided to go and just sell off the Artisan Market, our award-winning, prize-winning Artisan Market. Thank you.
Members, agenda item 11 is our next item to receive petitions from members. I've not been aware of any to be handed in this evening. Agenda item 12 and 13. Members, agenda item 12 and 13 relate to urgent business and confidential business. I have no urgent or confidential business that needs to be considered this evening, but please do not rush off just yet, as I have one final announcement to make. Members, you will be aware that this evening's council meeting will be the last council meeting attended by Dave Adams, our Executive Director for Sustainable Environment. Dave, who started his career with this council in 1988 as a horticultural technician, is retiring shortly. I'd like to express my thanks to Dave on behalf of members and our residents for 35 years of service. And I'll hand over briefly to the group leaders to say a few words. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for for allowing this. And I think it's 1988. It's prison sentence plus, isn't it? It's but I've known Dave obviously since 2003 when he became a councillor, and then he became a director up to director level in 2006, and has been in that position since. And I think he knows this council inside out. You know, if I miss him in this respect, if I need anything done, you just go to Dave and he'll sort it out for you, you know, sort of thing, which is what we want. And I remember during the COVID pandemic, Dave, we always wanted to have a presence in the building, you know, to ensure, you know, that, and of course the rules were you could come into work if you had to. And, you know, Dave was always the one that came in and kept the ship afloat and the lights on. And I think that was really, really good of him to do that. And I know he's got a life to go to after this, and he has property in Scotland, and he'll be spending time there, I should think, and with his family. And of course, he lives in the Westlands, obviously. So when I'm out with leaflet him, I'm always going to his house and sticking leaflets through the door and stuff. And so he's a good guy, is Dave. And I think the whole team around him think the same. I think his executive team and the senior officers, and then of course at the depot, of course, where is, you know, the operational services he's been in charge of. And of course in the last couple of years he's really taken on the sustainability agenda for us and really pushed that forward, so that's central to everything we do with our environment strategy. So I'd just like to say thank you to Dave and wish him all the best for the future. And he's getting I thought you'd be getting ready by the minute, but you're not, because I know you were sort of upstairs, didn't want all the fuss and stuff, but we're going to give you a fuss, yes. So, and when you do, you know, you finally come to leave, I'm sure we'll throw a party for him as well, and wish him all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor David Jones, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to ask Councillor Williams to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been a long evening, but nothing against the times that Dave has been a servant. I'll use that word, servant, to this borough, because he did things out of the box and did a lot of put of his own time, private time, into the borough to make it the borough we have today, the modern borough we have today, and especially in the Britain and Bloom. And I think many years ago, Dave, when you introduced Britain and Bloom to the borough, and we took it on, and we won numerous prizes for the town centre, not only just the town centre, but in the communities, in the villages of the borough, that really took this on, this idea of Britain and Bloom, and made it a success. And I thank you for that and that work you put on. But I could go on in many things we've talked about over the years, and we've disagreed on some, but not everything's been a success. But we've had a go at doing things, and doing things for the residents of the borough, not just for the sake of work, as the officers do. Some do, some, like I say, go out the box, jump out the box and do work and put a lot of time in. So thank you again, and good luck to you. And I think you'll do a lot of bird watching in Scotland. I know the eagles are up there, aren't they? I don't know where some left in the, but anyway, best of luck to you, Dave, and to your family as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Williams. Dave, is there anything you want to say?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you everyone for such kind words. They've taken me quite by surprise. It's been an absolute honour and a privilege to be part of the team and serve the council and residents of this great borough to the best of my ability. As might be expected, it's not been without its challenges along the way, but these have been more than outweighed by the reward of seeing the borough develop, grow, and I might say bloom as well. So thank you again, Madam Mayor, for this opportunity to respond, and thank you everyone again for your kind words.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg, and thank you, Councillor John Williams, for those kind words. And thank you, Dave Adams, and all the best for the future from all of us here at the council. Members, that does now conclude the business for this meeting, and I therefore declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Safe journey home.